All right, so that would be the most interesting probably so far, because everybody will be staying behind. So I'm gonna speak about the terminology of what we're using as of April 14th, right? So it's like it's not optional, it's almost like mandatory, so kids do not get confused, because we're all teaching same kids, we're all teaching same groups, so kids do not get confused. We have to communicate in a certain way. In addition to that, some of the terms will have a lot to do with the way you coach. So probably it's already first one where you might think of, oh, okay, that's a little bit different, that I used to explain stuff that works a little differently. And also you will come up with a lot of questions that we eventually going to respond whenever we will start going through the certain shots, like how we teach forehand, backhand, serve, volley, and so on and so forth. So we can start. I will always need a volunteer to feed. So instead of that being Roman all the time, there might be some different people, just so we can review. So let's go, everybody over there. So you stay behind the camera. Roman, can you please move the camera behind? Any questions that you had so far for the previous meetings that I will have to respond at the end, so I know how much time to leave at the end? Would you have a question? No? No? Okay. You should have, yeah, take attendance like this, like just watch who is here. Rom. If one or two of you can take rackets, would be also nice. If you will put it here, would we be able to see the court, or here is the best? To see the whole court. Okay. This is so I can put my notebook somewhere. So I was quite optimistic with the fact that I believe that it will be possible to cover within one session, but I think it will be impossible, given how much writing I did. So we will just start with the matter of like importance. I would say everything is important, but we will try like that. So first of all, how do we find zonings, right? So we always, like, everybody has an idea about like defensive, offensive zone, but something that we communicate to kids the most. So I offer to measure zonings with like a rackets. So something from a baseline to 2 rackets behind the baseline, so up to here, that would be a neutral zone. So same 2 rackets somewhere around here would be a defensive position, defensive zone, and farther than that, deep defensive position. So defensive, deep defensive position. Neutral, I would say another like 2 rackets, maybe up to 3/4 court. That would be an offensive position, right? Here, a lot of people call it transition zone, but I prefer to start calling that starting from here. This is where the first volley position happens, first volley zone, going up until the service line. And from service line to the end is like a second volley position. That doesn't mean that if you stay here, you necessarily hit first volley. It's just like the zones. So whenever, let's say, we even introduce the topics at demo, we say like you start like 3/4 court or like offensive position. So they're somewhere like around here. So they know approximately where to stay. Or I can say start with 3/4 court or first volley position to move on, or start at the second volley position or in the service line, right? But this is primarily the one that we use. So neutral, defensive, deep defensive position. Cool. I go quickly through footwork standards because we recently got a 5th one. So if the coaches are not sure about it, kids will not know about it for sure. So we have 5, and one by one I will start with base. So it's like we have a wide base maintenance. How much is wide base? We will measure it in rackets. Or like depending how short or big the kids are, you can adopt it by just like wider than the shoulder, like 1 foot wider than the shoulder on the right, 1 foot wider on the left. That looks uncomfortable, so when kids do that, that's a little bit too much. So I would say that's pretty standard when it's like 1 foot from one shoulder, 1 foot from another shoulder. And the standard code called wide base maintenance. So that, what does it mean? Whenever kids get to play a point, the moment they start, so let's say they make a serve, they make a recovery, that's it. Since now, this position does not change. I go to hit the forehand, I try to maintain it, I recover, I go to play a backhand, I try to maintain it, I hit, I recover after overhead, I have to go and try to maintain it. It is important to know that whenever kids are shuffling, we try to avoid this kind of shuffle. Even when we shuffle, we try to maintain it, right? So obviously when we do crossovers, at some point legs are gonna go close to each other, but like again, after crossover, we maintain it. After sprint, we maintain it. Wide base maintenance. Another one that's based on the height, this is the recent one that we added. And this is my fault that I don't have it on the document yet. I'll try to come up with it as early as possible to put it next to our office. So the second one would be maintaining a tennis height. Why I decided to call it that way? Because everybody is a different size, and there is a tendency to believe if you are not super tall, then you do not have to maintain banded legs, or you don't have to try to be low the whole time. It has nothing to do with size. It has a lot to do with the way our legs are working. We do not want to find ourselves on a fully extended leg. So as best as we could, we try to maintain, maybe for Sadi's size, Juan is probably feeling jealous that I took Sadi. For Sadi's size is a light bend. For my size, a little bit more bend, right? But it's like always bended. That means when we're hitting a shot, so let's say this is my tennis height. We figure out that I feel quite comfortable being wide. So I'm hitting the ball and I'm trying to maintain it. I'm hitting a drive. I try to maintain it. So my impact point does not change my height, because this is the most frequent one. Well, I have a drive to hit. Yes, you have a drive to hit, but you don't have to stand up and hit it like this. You can still hit a drive over there. As we're gonna speak about ground strokes, volleys, slices, and pretty much anything, return of serve, it is super important that during the impact, our body does not change the height, as it can affect what's happening at the impact. So, any questions so far about the tennis height? So Jose will definitely have the same banded leg as Juan has, even though the height is almost 1 meter difference, right? Next one, so wide base, tennis height, recovery. Recovery, how do we manage that? We wait for a shot to be finished, so the racket hits the body or catches in the arm. Recovery starts. Since that moment, it does matter how quick recovery would be. What we do not want is the kids haven't finished hitting the shot and already recover, because they're trying to rush to recover, because this is going to affect the striking. So you hit the ball and then a quick recovery. That's first part of the recovery. Second part, get behind the ball. That's a very interesting thing, because every kid understands it differently. So let's say if I have a ball that I do not have, maybe in the box over here, or a dead ball. I can take a dead ball. Let's keep it red so it would be easier to see. Especially for a backhand, because like forehand, we can argue with that. You can play open stance. For backhand, fundamentally, as I'm learning tennis, I do not want to come to the ball here. I want to come to the ball from making a step towards the ball. So it means that my position to the ball is from behind. So if I can come from behind the ball, if the circumstances of the point does not force me to come like this, or like this, I always need to choose to come from behind. So if kid has time and didn't do that, that's a warning. Obviously, if kid does not have time, if they're coming to the ball like this or like this, and we speak about it didn't get behind the ball, that would be unfair because they couldn't. But if they can, we always try to come from behind. Does that make sense? Another thing we often use is to have the ball beside you, which means that I do not want to impact the ball here in front of me. I want it to be slightly beside me. So in the relation to my body, it's more like this way rather than this way. So from behind, beside the ball. Does that make sense? Another part of recovery is having both feet on the ground. Recovery. I started already speaking. So recovery, that was different. I already talking about the fourth one. So with recovery, I said that it's important to finish the shot and recover. That's the third standard. I'm already speaking about the fourth one, which is a setup. My bad. So coming from behind the ball, that's a setup part. If you're making notes, that's a setup part. So for setup, yeah, I'm behind the ball. And the second one, we try to keep both feet on the ground. Super important. That's not as perfect of a setup, right? Like it does happen, ball is high, I'm already kind of late. Usually I wouldn't be from behind the ball, but sometimes I can be behind, but I didn't manage impact here. I need to go like this to hit the ball, right? So ideal setup is both feet on the ground. I will try to put it on the file, but this is more for players. For coaches, I'm trying to explain it and divide it by. You're not going to receive anything today after this one. It's eventually I will come up with this to put it on the wall. So, and the fifth one is intensity. Intensity includes stuff that happens in between the points too. For example, this morning, the task was that like your starting position is here, right? But you can play volley, and if you miss volley, you go back to starting position. So if the kids are going and like hitting like a volley, they miss the shot and they go here, we also count it as the intensity because we have time, the drill is moving, you're not trying to hustle, you're not trying to be like present. That could be already an intensity. And obviously intensity in the rallying or in the point, you can maintain all the footwork standards, but you can do like this, right? And you can also do it like that. So it's like a volume of your steps would matter for the intensity. Does that make sense? Any questions regarding footwork standard so far? Okay, so the next thing I will speak about the zoning. Yeah, let's start with forehand and backhand. That's probably going to be the most difficult one to explain. So, number one, we try to call every single type of response of the racket in terms of the spin on the ball. I'll explain you what I mean a little later. Because a big philosophy of Tennis Canada is train the ball, which I 100% agree with. So you look at the ball, you look how your ball responds, and you make adjustments based on that. If we won't be able to call how the ball responds properly, we will have problem. Now, the big thing to remember for anything, ground stroke, serve, volleys, there's no such a thing as flat ball. Does not exist. Even in theory it does. In theory it does. So like it's very obvious. So the ball is flying. We can try to see. So the ball is flying. It's like Propan is looking at you like that the whole time. How many times you actually see that ball? We do see sometimes like ball is rolling this way very slowly, right? But we're definitely not teaching, we're not calling, and we're not trying to execute a flat ball. For nothing. Not for the serve, not for forehand, not for backhand, not for volley, nothing, not overhead. Every ball has some type of spin. That's very important to understand. And this is not as of April 14th is just like forever. Just because if we want to train the ball, we have to be very, very clear that this thing does not happen. So potentially what I can have, it would be better to have you on the forehand side if you don't mind, because it would be easier for me to show than on the backhand, unless I'll need to use one-handed backhand, but this is already Juan's area of expertise, so I cannot. So I divide three different types of forehand that we primarily train. There is more, three different spins. So number one would be a heavy ball, which is a 50-50 ratio of going up 50 and through 50 as I'm swinging at the ball. Do you understand what I mean by 50% up, 50% through? Right? Because it's approximate, this is why I say it's like in between 35% and 50%, that would be heavy ball. We'd never go more than 50% up on the forehand or back. We never want to do that. Why? Because as you're starting to go less than 50% through, ball's starting to be like a dead. It's starting to lose the pace. It's starting to lose the quality and sense of playing that much topspin, right? Because if you try to play a lot of topspin and you go, let's say 70% up and 30% through, which is something like this, if I don't shank, right? It's like ball is not moving through. It doesn't hurt an opponent. Makes no sense to even teach it. So 50% is our limit. 35 to 50%, that's heavy ball range. Then we have a drive, which starts at 5%. And why does it start at 5%? Because this is, again, approximately. For every player, it's different. But why we want to tell our students that it starts at 5? Because this is a bare minimum where they can still control the spin, right? So that would be like a drive with maybe it's 10%. That would be probably a drive with 5%. Ball has a little bit of topspin, just as a matter of security. I do not want to go lower than 5 because this is where my ball will start losing control. Spin equals control, so I do want to have a bare minimum of like 5% of spin. And as I said, yes, please. Like a racket of balls, if I can. Like, yeah, one racket of balls just to drop it here. So let's say the drive is going to be within 5 to 15%, right? So the first one I tried to show, I immediately feel that it was more than 5%. It was like 10, 15%, but it was still drive. How do I know? I look at the shape of the ball, right? Drive would definitely not go up from my racket like that, or even a little bit up. It's primarily going straight, or sometimes it's even going straight and immediately gradually starting going down. Right, so from 5 to 15, it's going to be a drive. In between those 15 and 35%, this is something what we call topspin drive. What I call, what Roman calls, what we try to keep like in between, so it's easy to remember. It's kind of as simple as in between drive and heavy ball. It's like drive with a little bit more topspin, right? So it's like topspin drive. And if you heard me doing like demos for the kids and explaining that this is how I want the ball look like, approximately like a topspin drive. So to show, if you can notice how high ball is going off my strings, that would be like a topspin drive where my impact happens and the ball goes about like that of my impact. That would be like a topspin drive. Does that make sense? Remember, it has not much to do with the height over the net. I can hit heavy but low. That's a little bit different. This is based on like a swing path, but I can still hit, I can even hit drive very, very high. I can hit drive even to the bubble. My ball is still a drive, right? So it's the way my ball is spinning in the air. I can also try to hit like heavy but very low. It's more about like a path of the ball. Sorry, spin on the ball, not the path of the ball, right? Questions so far? So same kind of thing on the backhand. Why is it important to remember and teaching someone? Because, for instance, for guys, it would be almost mandatory to know how to hit heavy forehand. For girls, I doubt they're gonna use it a lot, right? Will they use it ever? For sure. But primarily, we're gonna be training girls within the range of like a topspin drive, where the guys will unfortunately have to learn everything, right? But for instance, backhand, I, for example, don't hardly use like a backhand heavy ball. I use it just like in some exceptions. So it's important to know, so if you get a player who never hits heavy and you try to teach them heavy, that probably you're not, unless you have a tactical reason behind it, you're probably not like triggering exactly what the player needs. Now, as we know, ball can go, in addition to topspin, and can go to the other types of spin. So this is where I have inside spin and outside spin. So the example with the forehand with the, let's say, ideally, we want forehand with inside spin. What does it mean? That the ball is bouncing and going to the left. We're gonna speak about how to produce it more like a little later, but it's approximately, if you could see my ball, I'll try to send it on the same line. If you see my ball, when it makes a bounce, it goes a little bit to the left. Do you understand that? Do you see that? Are you able to see that? It's not perfectly top spin. It has top spin and a little bit like of a side spin toward that way. Also, it's possible to hit forehand with this type of spin, which ball bounces and going to the right. Why it is important to know? Because if we will train kids to see it, they will understand that this is something that they're doing wrong, that they need to adjust. If they make the ball in, but they see that their forehand is going like with outside spin, that means that there is something to do with their impact. There is something to correct with the footwork setup, with the racket path, etc., in order to prevent it from happening. Sometimes there's a pure side spin. Situations where, let's say, somebody serves to my body, I'm completely getting out of the ball and I'm like hitting like this. It's a primarily side spin. Also have place to be on the court. Sometimes happen. Sometimes that the only thing that we can do, it's better than trying to hit it flat. It's better to give any type of spin, because spin equals control. I would have more control doing like that on my forehand than doing like this. Is that clear? Cool. Any questions so far about that? If I have here, we will primarily speak about it when we're gonna do like ground strokes. I'll try to not stop on this kind of thing, but it is okay, because like if the kid average size is like here, Juan, can you go here? Okay, joking. So if the kid is not super tall and primarily they're hitting high heavy balls, it will be very often that they're hitting forehand there. Because our path of the racket goes right to left, they're gonna catch it like that. So it's going to be like some side spin over here. What is important at this age is to show them that, look, you see the ball that you produce. So they know that, well, it's not ideal, but that's the only way I could have hit the ball. But this is not something that I should be like okay with. So next time I'll try to, if I can avoid hitting here, I'll try to let the ball drop so I can hit it properly, because they will know that properly is just like a topspin, or topspin with a little bit of side spin. By the way, in the same age group, you will not see a lot of like inside spin either, because they do not have enough racket head speed to produce that ball, so that bouncing and going to the left. But if you get to see pros playing, including WTA, who I said like probably do not go for that many heavy balls, sometimes you can tell on the replay, they're slowing down and showing how the ball like hits the back fence. You could see that the ball path is like here and a little bit there. Whenever they do virtual shape of the ball, it's also easy to see. Primarily in men's tour though. Cool. Should we move on? Now, a very interesting one, as many of you will reassess your knowledge about the serve. Same thing on a serve. Well, back in kind of identical situation, right? Identical. A heavy ball, topspin drive, so on and so forth. Serve. There is many ways ball can go. If you don't mind, go here. Stay behind me. I'll try my best to serve exactly on the line. Not sure how it's gonna work, so probably like here. So probably the first serve that we should teach kids is to how to serve a slice serve, right? So the slice for the righty is going to be like ball bouncing and it going to the left. I'll do my best to show it down the line. Is that clear that the ball is bouncing? Bouncing and slowly curving. If I exaggerate, it would be more obvious, but it should be like slice, right? So as we're gonna speak about the serve, we're gonna break down how to teach it, how to hit it, and stuff like that. Now, there is also a serve that's bouncing and going to the right. And it's not yet a kick serve. And I've heard a few names of this, but I stick to call it a spin serve. Spin serve is not a kick serve. It's two different serves. So I'll speak about it later. So spin serve would look like this. Were you able to see the bounce? Ball going straight, it goes to the right. Not yet, it's bouncing up. So to bounce up, it's missing top spin. So we have slice serve, we have spin serve. Here is where terminology might come. For example, I've heard Roman very often teaches kids to do slice drive. How would you understand that? No. Type of serve. So Roman is teaching student and he says, I don't know, Bob, you just serve slice? Yeah, can you do slice drive? What would that mean? According to the terminology that we're speaking right now. Any idea? More racket speed, less spin. Same as forehand. Remember forehand? Forehand heavy, right? And forehand drive. Still have top spin, different amount. So slice drive, he probably asking his students for the first serve with a little bit of slice spin, right? So I'll go and I'll do something like that. First serve with less slice spin, but it still has a slice spin as primary control to the ball. Same exact thing, as you can guess, can happen with the first spin, right? So he can go like, can you do spin drive? Boom, spin drive. Well, I try my best to serve on the line. Ball bouncing, clearly doesn't bounce to the left, right? Kind of important, very important to know why we want to avoid terminology of a flat serve, as we can speak about the first serve. Because if you think about it logically, the only way, in theory, to make a flat serve is my racket supposed to hit the ball exactly straight. When did you see that happen? Never. You all like to teach pronation on the serve. Pronation will not happen if you're hitting like this on the ball. Pronation only will start happening when there is like a side, any type of side, even a tiny bit on the side friction with the ball. This is where pronation will happen. On this one, unless you want to call this pronation, especially these drills, very useful to get injured. Nothing else. So, slice drive or slice first would mean, for me, I'm using slice first, which means that I'm asking my student to do in between 5 to 15% of slice spin. When I say spin first, it means that I'm expecting them to do from 5 to 15 spin. Does that make sense? Now, getting into the second serve, that would be a little harder to show because I honestly is struggling to produce it because I do not teach it, but it does happen all the time. So there is a topspin serve exists. Same as the forehand topspin, ideal topspin would not be possible. It always will have some outside and inside spin, right? So I mean, I'll try one or two, maybe it will happen. Let's call it, it bounced almost straight. So the ball is clearly not bouncing as much through as, for example, slice or spin did. It bounced and it went up. I mean, would you be able to see it? Or I should swing faster. So it's like ball bounce and goes up. Pure topspin does not really happen that often, but still take place to be. So kick serve is a combination of this topspin and spin, right? That we call like spin, where the ball is bouncing to the right, and it has a topspin in it. So I'll try like, so this one I should be able to make. Try again. Would you be able to see that the ball is bouncing to the right a little? I'll try again. So it's bouncing up and to the right. So that would be the serve that we call a kick serve. Kids see the ball that they serve. It would be unfair for them to say where their ball has topspin, it's definitely bouncing up, but it just stays on the same line. They're like, well, I served kick. Not exactly. I mean, obviously you can say it whenever they're just learning how to apply topspin on the serve, so they feel a little bit more better about themselves. But if you're very well into learning a kick serve, and they serve and ball just goes straight, or sometimes it goes up and to the left, which is also has a little bit of slice spin. I did not have the name for this one, but I had a student who come up with the name for the serve. And the most logical thing he offered was a punch serve. Punch, because like kick is bouncing to this way, punch is bouncing another way. So kick and punch. I mean, if you want, you can stick to this terminology. For me, I would be fine if you will just know that if your student's serving, I'll try a few. Something like that, right? So if your student is serving and you clearly see that the ball is bouncing up, but it doesn't go to the right, doesn't stay straight, it's bouncing to the left, and let's say on clay court, sometimes the court can affect the bounce, but on hard court, it's clear. Ball is bouncing up and to the left for the righty. It's not a kick. Does it have topspin? Certainly. It does have a top. Is it a kick serve? No. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions regarding that so far? Okay. So I could be missing some terms, as I'm almost not looking at my notes, but if I'll remember something, I'll try to say as much as I remember. So let's come back a little bit to, you know what? Let's go to slice. It would be more logical. Slice. Primarily, I'm trying to produce a slice with just a backspin. As you can see, my ball did not have pure backspin, right? It bounced and it went to the right. Exaggerated way, that it's going to be this. So this is what we will call inside spin, right? So slice with backspin together with inside spin. Super important. It's not like you teaching especially how to do that. What I want you is to teach kids to see it, because that's a fundament. If you want to train the ball, you need to understand how the ball acts and why does it act like that. Why does it act like that? We're going to speak on the different meetings, but is that obvious, right? So outside spin would be this one. As you can see, ball is bouncing and it's going to the left, and same as top spin, same as flat serve. Pure flat or pure top spin will not happen. Same as pure backspin. In theory, it's easy to do, but it's like realistically, I need a couple tries to actually make the ball stay on the same line, and it still would be a lie, because ball might still have a tiny bit of side spin, right? But speaking on that, just very quickly, when you're teaching slice, we obviously try to, as much as we can, rely on a backspin. But then kids are using slice a lot whenever they're running for the ball, they're reaching this way. So which type of spin they're usually going to produce over there? Outside, right? So, and that would be normal. And in fact, you can teach to exaggerate it. This is also one of my favorite shots, like to kind of counter punch it. Like when somebody caught me on not recovering very well enough, I will go slice outside that is going to go short and curve away from my opponent. That would be fine. Same as if I'm going to go forward and ball is going to be too far in front of me, I cannot produce outside. I cannot even do backspin. I'll have to go and do like some outside spin on the ball, just because that would be the easiest spin to apply to the ball in order to control the ball. Does that make sense? Volley, same exact idea. In fact, yes, please. Sorry, can you, so I don't look like I'm overusing his help, can you please bring? Thank you. You're the best. Whenever you're teaching, let me know if you cannot hear me. I'll try to speak louder. When you're introducing tennis to someone, I strongly recommend you to learn slice first, then learn volley. Up to the point where when I'm introducing tennis to some older generation people, not to the very young kids, to some older ones, I definitely do it within like 2 or 3 lessons. The moment they start hitting the ball like straight, I'm trying to explain like, okay, try this, try to make the ball go like this, try to make the ball go like this. They succeed once out of 5 times, but then they immediately have no restrictions when they move on into tennis, because then you tell them, hit a forehand of the air. Here we go, swing volley. Hit slice of the air. Here we go, volley. And maybe vice versa if you're, thank you. If you have someone struggling to hit off the bounce, because there is, those people exist, usually rec players. Kids, I haven't find it. Kids are usually okay with learning it off the bounce. You can teach off the air and then go into the bounce. Make it easier for yourself. Just put them in the same category. Slice, volley, same category. And in fact, it makes a lot of sense, because the way we're impacting the ball also, also close to the slice. Volleys. Obviously, I will try to put some spin on my volley. Ideal scenario, I will put a little bit of a backspin just for control, right? But it really depends what type of volley I hit. If I'll go and I hit first volley and the ball is really far in front of me and low, which spin I will most likely to have? Gosh, no idea. On an analogy with the slice, you remember when I was hitting slice in front of me and low, which type of slice I had, which type of spin? Yeah, I did have side, but which one? So if I'm hitting in front of me, let's say it's a backhand, you're doing it all the time. You're hitting the ball like this. What type of spin is going to be? It's like outside, right? So it's going to be side spin, but it's like, it's important to know it's like kind of inside. So in my right side, it's going this way, or outside. Or even the way you're going to call it. If you will call this one outside and the other one is inside, I'm fine with that too, as long as kids see that there is a difference on the ball, right? On the high balls, on the volleys, super important to know, because kids are super short and most of the volleys they hit are above their shoulder, and to try to hit a backspin over here is super hard. So at least make them do a little bit of a side spin if they can. Any type of spin, any type of ball control. Backhand volley, same thing. High volley, like a little bit of this outside spin, a little bit of outside, not a lot, just so to feel this friction with the ball. That's the ball feel, that's the ball touch. Make sense? There is some volleys, like a block volley. This is where you're really dependent on which ball is coming to you, right? But this is where you might not have time to do anything else than just like having something short, which most of the time can be even like, some of them even hit with topspin. It's like this. If you will look at Jamie Murray playing volleys, like when having a racket over here, he might even have a little bit of topspin. So pretty much whatever you can come up with on those like block volleys can happen, but primarily on the block volley, we would be focusing on keeping the racket face flat and solid, right? And if you can, this way, if you can, that way, any type of control, do not just keep it like flat. because this means probably no control at all. Does that make sense? A couple words about the drop shot and the difference between drop shot and the short slice in a ball path. Right? Drop shot I can also do with several types of spin, but important to remember when you're teaching a drop shot to a kid, primarily try to teach, obviously, to keep a backspin and explain that specifically the path of the ball is the one that makes your backspin more effective. By other words, if I'll try to hit the same distance in the middle of the service box with the backspin low, second bounce is going to be outside of the service line. If I hit the same exact spot, but I'll hit with backspin up, this is what will make the ball stop. And ball bait, I don't know, my ball probably made 2 bounces, right? So that's very important to know. The difference between those short slices and the drop shots is then the ball path. Ball goes up of the racket, and this is what makes the backspin to be more effective. Obviously, you will want to apply more backspin, but that's as a progression they're going to learn. At the beginning, it's just like change a ball path. Try to make it go up and down. Make sense? What I wanted to say, like volleys. I personally use, this is my specific thing, as I was also told a different way. There is a difference between a drop volley and drop shot volley. At least for me, this is why I explain it to most of the kids. We can speak about it and change the terminology. I'll explain the difference. So the drop shot volley, I'm actually focusing on creating this backspin that's gonna stop the ball, and it would be short. The ball is gonna go over the net and trying to stop it so it doesn't even cross the service line after like 3-4 bounces. And there is a drop volley where you drop the speed of incoming ball. It's still a short volley, but I'm not focusing on creating a lot of backspin that's gonna stop the ball and making this path like up and down. I'm just trying to break this, like take the speed of my opponent's ball and use it against him. Why? Because another very useful thing to hear in one of the regroupings, I think it was CP2 probably, when they were showing us an example of interesting data, that there is a correlation in between if your approach shot is fast and volley, like the bigger the difference between your approach and volley in the speed, the more you win. For example, if I have 2 identical approaches, my approach is 100 kilometers an hour or miles an hour, whatever you want to say, and my volley is 50 miles an hour, I will win less than I would win when my approach is 100 and my volley is 20. Do you understand what I just said? So if my approach is fast and my volley is fast, I will win less than my approach is fast and volley is slow. Singles, that's from singles. Not sure about that, that's from singles. Do you understand? Do you have any idea why it's happening? Right, so fast pace, pushing my opponent back. Then in addition to me moving the ball to the other side of the court, I want to hit slower, so my opponent not only struggles to recover laterally, also forward. In addition to that, if he'll get forward or she'll get forward, they have the ball below the net, and if I have to finish it with the second one, it would be easier than my opponent will have the ball over here. Make sense? We do not have much time, so I guess the last thing I'll speak about is if the swing length, we have an average. Let's say my average forehand looks like this. I'll try to do it abbreviated. So my average forehand is this. There is a short take back or compact take back, or you can use mini forehand. So that's my regular forehand, mini forehand. Why it is important? Because some shots require a little bit more attention to the impact than others, right? Impact is the king, is like the most important stuff. But just like sometimes we have enough time to do it, sometimes we do not have enough time to do it. Not always I'll make a short take back only for the ball that is coming fast at me. Sometimes it's just the complexity of the ball that's coming requires me to make a shorter take back. For example, drive would be the one, right? If I'm attempting to hit a drive on clay, I would probably try to keep my take back a little bit more compact because I know there's like a lot of things can go wrong on clay and I will hit the ball on the rise. I might screw it up. So in order to maintain a good timing, I'll keep it there. Last thing, timing. Timing, and speaking about it there every practice with all my students, as I believe it's critical in terms of making adjustments, because so many times we're looking there for an answer in the technical imperfections, but the reality is the timing of work when kids are striking the ball is not right. Does that make sense? So sometimes kids are hitting too far in front and we're thinking about, oh, you open up your shoulders too early. Well, let them hit the ball closer to them. And this is where I said beside the ball, right? Like have the ball. I would say if you are teaching a neutral stance, oh, by the way, open, semi-open, neutral, closed stance. Open, semi, neutral, close. Right? You can review it on the video. As of April 14th, maybe something is going to change. Right? So I'm hitting neutral stance. I would say ideally we would be aiming to have something around my front foot, which is, as you can notice, it's not my full arm extension. Right? Which is extremely important not to copy Roger Federer at everything, right? Because this is where a lot of mistakes are coming because everybody tries to squeeze the impact on the straight arm, but that's a different topic to make. Timing, rhythm, very similar terms. We can speak about it more on a different time, but primarily I want you to remember that is like the timing. I divide two types of timing that every kid's supposed to know. It's the timing of a setup, the time when you set up your feet, right? Sometimes we have a late setup, right? We get to the ball, it's like, oh, ball is here, late setup. Sometimes it's, and even more often, it's an early setup. I get to the ball, I set too early, ball bounce, I have to hit over here and produce a side spin on my forehand. You understand that? So setup, so timing of a footwork, and timing of a striking zone, timing of an impact point. There is a different terms we can use it, but this is like when you strike the ball, when, here, there. Also can be where you strike the ball, it's also can relate it to timing. I mess up the timing where the ball is still rising or staying neutral, so now I have to hit the ball when it's here. I can also address timing on this part, right? My height of the impact changed, unless I really want to hit it here for some reason, right? So timing also could be a timing issue. Maybe it's timing issue that was leading from timing of a setup. So at least those two, every kid's supposed to know. You can separate it wherever you want. The timing of when the racket is getting back, right? The timing when you drop the racket. We have one student who likes to do this. Everybody knows the name of this player, my player, right? So timing. I guess that's it for today. I think we have another like 2 minutes left for questions regarding today, because you don't have any questions regarding later. If there's something quick, I will respond. If there's something for another lecture. That's a good question. I would say that the key moment is do not let the racket go on a higher portion whenever racket is above the waist height. Do not let racket cross here. So you can make a bigger circle like over here, as long as racket does not go there. The only place where the racket is crossing my body it should be like over here. Whenever I go, like regardless what grip I have. So it's like when I'm getting under the ball and hitting, here you can see my racket behind. Over here, better not to. This is where like address probably how compact the swing is. Girls have a lot of issues with that sometimes. I find it's more girls than boys, but I would not encourage to keep a short as a regular one. Like keep it compact, yes, but keep it short. Like someone like Fonini or Berrettini, those Italian guys, I would not really teach kids that. If they eventually gonna come to it, if they will still execute all the important stuff like getting under the ball and swinging through and racket head speed of like a very short one, good for them. Compact one, they're supposed to have mini forehand, they're supposed to have a full forehand, they're supposed to have a mini version of the forehand, where all those little details are still maintained. Good.